Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of Reversing the Stigma. I'm Kate Mall, I'll be your host, and today we are going to be talking about a very traumatic time in my life when I had my very first heart attack. Very first and only. But let me take you back in time and it will help explain everything leading up to my heart attack. So, just as a disclaimer, this is the very first chapter I wrote for a book that has not yet been published, but it is something I've been working on for a very long time. It's going to be an autobiography of my life. I still feel like I have a ton of life left to live and experiences to learn before I put this out in the world. So I wanted to share this chapter with you all now because as tough as it is to relive this, I truly hope that it not only gives you insight to what I really went through, but helps somebody in some way. And it doesn't even have to be exactly similar. Okay. The name of the chapter is You Gave Me a Heart Attack. Literally. School was always hard for me, dealing with things at home and the constant worry if I'd find my parents dead at the end of the day when I returned. It was something I always worried about as a kid. If they've done so many drugs while I was gone that when I came back, they'd be dead. It was a routine for me by this point. 12 years old and a 7th grader in a high school that housed 7th through 12th grade students. Having to deal with the struggles of high school and worrying about my parents instead of enjoying being a kid. Don't get me wrong here. I have memories as a kid that I hold near and dear to my heart, but the unfairness to me is what was really taxing on a young, molding mind. It was nice outside on this particular day. It was like a spring or a summer day. And I sincerely remember it like it was yesterday. I had just gotten finished eating lunch. I had a chicken patty. I had a chicken patty with mayo, rice on the side with hot sauce, and a chocolate milk to wash it down. It was my go-to lunch at school. After lunch that year, my schedule was to go write in history class with Mr. Carlo. So we didn't get along much, Mr. Carlo and I was a very talkative student, very jittery kind of student. School was my least favorite thing, and back then, so was Mr. Carlo. Sorry. I walked right into class to sit down that day, and as always, I sat right in front of Javon Pendarvis. Y'all, I'm telling you, I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember everybody and everything. It was crazy. So he was a boy in my class, and honestly, he was the sweetest boy. He was always so kind to me, so kind. And I will always remember him that way, and I just think that that's so important to mention. He would always have his feet on the back of my chair, like on the bottom part where we would store our books. And like clockwork, he would start to like shake his leg. And believe you me, I felt it happen after a while. And I would turn around in the middle of class and be like, Javon, can you stop shaking my chair? And he kind of giggled and smiled. But nonetheless, he probably thought I was insane. I mean, hell, I thought I was insane. It kept happening, this pounding and shaking feeling. And after finding out that Javon wasn't shaking my chair this time, and I was still going, I got scared. I raised my hand to ask Mr. Carlo if I can go to the bathroom. He flat out said no to me. I waited and I tried to calm myself down and just, wait it out until we switched classes. But I couldn't. So I asked again, Mr. Carlo, can you please let me go to the bathroom? His final response was no. So I did anything I could to get my mind off of it. I even paid attention in class, which you should always do. And after class, I met up with my 2 high school best friends at the time, Katie and Sarah, and we'd always meet in the halls and walk with one another to our next class. So I was telling Katie that I wasn't feeling well and my heart was kind of pounding and I didn't know what to do. So she felt my chest, like by where my heart is, and immediately she's like, we need to go to the nurse. And I started tearing up, and I just hate having to go to the nurse. It was always like a scary place for me. And little did I know it was about to get even like a whole lot scarier. So Katie and I went back and forth about whether or not I should go to the nurse. Of course, I wasn't going down without a fight. She finally walked me right to the nurse herself, skipped her class to make sure that I got the medical attention I needed. We went into the nurse's office and Katie pretty much helped me explain what was going on. The nurse took my blood pressure, my heart rate, and she asked me a bunch of questions. Some were pretty uncomfortable, but most of them were asking me what I ate. Did I eat something that someone else gave me? Have I done any drugs? The last one, I was pretty appalled by. How could they think I was doing drugs? How could they see me as a kid who would do drugs? My parents do drugs. And I most definitely am terrified by them. All these thoughts buzzing around my head as I cried and sobbed in her office. She sent Katie to class and called my sister, who was my emergency contact. My sister and I are 8 years apart, so she was just about 19 or 20. She left work and got to the school as quickly as she could. When she arrived, the nurse tried filling her in on the situation and asked her the same questions that she was asking me. My sister didn't take kindly to those questions, as she knew her little sister and our home situation. She turned around to the nurse and yelled at her for even asking those questions. She was, and still is, my biggest protector. The school nurse was nice about it and knew my sister, as she had just graduated about it a year or so ago from the same high school. She explained that she needs to ask these questions before she can make any decisions to what was going on with me. When all was said and done, the next thing I knew, my sister, crying, turns to me and says, Caitlin, the ambulance is going to come and take you so that they could take a look at what's going on. Well, I remember when I said I was scared of the school nurse. Well, doctors and hospitals were at the very top of my list of terrifying things. I was a mess, to say the least. My sister and the nurse tried keeping me calm as we waited. During that time, I overheard the nurse talking to my sister, explaining to her that she believes I may be having a small heart attack. How does a 12-year-old comprehend that? What was happening to me? Finally, I see these men in their EMT uniforms walking in with a stretcher. They come in, and just so happens that my sister knew them. She worked as a registrar at Mercy Hospital in my hometown. And they treated me so kindly. They made sure to let me know I was okay, I was going to be okay, and helped pretty much make me stay calm. They're EMTs, after all. They know what they're talking about. They put in an IV and gave me something to calm me down and help my heart rate slow down. They explained everything the best they can to a very scared 12-year-old. They put me on a stretcher, strapped me in so that I didn't fall. Of course, I asked why they had to do that. And we took a walk from the nurse's office down the main hallway, past the principal's office, and to the side door that led to a ramp. We wheeled outside to head to the ambulance, and as we did, I had to pass under our cafeteria. It was all glass windows, and it overlooked the outside. And it just so happened that day that it was the older kids' turn to eat their lunch. So they were all at the windows watching, just me getting wheeled off. How embarrassing, right? The other thing I remember from that day was telling the one EMT that he should be a comedian because I thought he was funny. He was trying to make me laugh from start to finish, so I wasn't scared. After that, it was kind of a mess of a blur. They must have gotten me all doped out because I don't remember the hospital part. This was hands down one of the scariest days I had at that point in life. I'm thankful for the school nurse, the EMTs, and of course my sister. But I do need to say the real hero through all of this is Katie Goya. She was always a wonderful human being and a friend to me, and I always have and still do cherish our friendship. After all, she saved me that day. If it wasn't for her taking me to the nurse, I don't know if I'd be here. So Katie, if you're ever listening to this or maybe reading this in the future, I just want to say thank you from the very bottom of my heart for forcing me to go to the nurse that day. Thank you for being an amazing friend all of those years, and I still and always will wish you the best and love you. That day changed my life from there on out. I had a very new thing to worry about, and another thing to add to my already long list of worries. We scheduled a doctor's appointment with a cardiologist specialist in Kingston. It was just a town over from mine. Now this day, though short, I remember so vividly. They made me wait outside after the checkup to talk with my parents. What a nerve-wracking thing for a child. It felt like awaiting my fate. I distinctly remember my dad coming outside, lighting up a cigarette, and telling me that I have a rare disease called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, or WPWS for short, and that I will be wearing a heart monitor for a couple of weeks so they can keep track of what's going on with my heart. To say I was terrified is a complete understatement. I had no clue what WPWS was, or how I got it, or what even triggered it. For those of you who don't know, WPWS, by definition, according to Wikipedia, is a disorder that causes the heart to beat abnormally fast for periods of time. The cause is an extra electrical connection in the heart. This problem with the heart is present at birth, so it's congenital. Although symptoms may not develop until later in life, so just like that, there is and was right in black and white, just as you're hearing it or seeing it. So the next few weeks, which pretty much felt like a lifetime, I wore my heart monitor. Couldn't take it off, not even to shower or take a bath. And it was a constant pain to have on. I was 12. It was scary. Being told you're fine, don't think about it, go lay down. It was a massive mix of emotions during a serious time in my very young life. I couldn't play sports. I didn't really hang out with my friends. I was practically homebound. The doctors didn't want anything to, as they put it, excite me, and spike my heart rate. So tell me how a kid who constantly worries is supposed to remain calm. Not only having drug addicts for parents, but the fact that I had to wrap my head around my having a mild heart attack, wearing a heart monitor, and wondering what's going to happen to me? Yeah, I'll try not to worry. All I wanted during this time was my mom. We were close. Well, close in the sense that I loved her so unconditionally much, and she chose drugs over me every time. I know it's harsh, and I am certain my mom loved me back. She just had different priorities that weren't me. I would lie wherever she was, it didn't matter, on the floor while she did the dishes, in the laundry room in our basement. I just always wanted to be around her, or on her lap, or to be held. I just wanted to be around her all the time. I felt safe around her at this time, and my heart felt safe around her. I always was and still am the type of individual who loves to just like rest my head in a loved one's lap and let them play with my hair, especially when I'm sad or sick. And I was both of these things. And then during this lifetime, I was just a girl who wanted her mom. Every once in a while, she would give in and cuddle me for a couple moments. But most of the time, it was a quick head pet and you'll be okay, don't worry about it. I felt as though I had annoyed her with my constant questions and asking if I can lie on her lap, or will you play with my hair, or am I going to die? It was a comfort thing. It was all that would calm me down. I just wanted to be constantly reminded that I was okay. This day I speak of, I remember like no other. It was the day I lost all respect for the one I call Mom. How could you just leave your child in her worst moment, a 12-year-old can have, to get a quick high? It just didn't, and to be honest, it still doesn't sit right with me. That time and those moments, that's what set the stage for who I became as a person and who she becomes as my parent. That day and every day forward, she chose drugs. She was quote unquote present at doctor visits. And when she wasn't high, she was the mom I needed. Although that didn't happen too often, due to her worrying less about me and more about where she was getting her next fix from. She would use me in arguments with my dad as a ploy to stop because we can't upset Kate. You gave 0 shits at that time, so don't you dare use me as your fucking scapegoat. The weeks went by and it was finally time to go get the heart monitor off. It was the biggest relief day for me, and I was very excited. I was nervous, and I was just curious as to what was going to happen next. Will it be over? Am I fixed? Do I need a new heart? So many thoughts were running through my mind, basically like a hamster wheel. So we went in and they took the monitor off. They spoke with the doctor. And again, I had to leave the room. So now I thought, No. They took off the heart monitor, spoke with the doctor, and again, I had to leave the room. Now what? I thought. Not long after my dad came out, my mom, and I went outside to the car, and that's when he told me the next part. I had to get an ablation procedure on my heart. All I was able to understand at the time was that I was getting a surgery. I was distraught, petrified of the mere thought of surgery. When I was just under 10 years old, my dad's mom, my grandma, she had gotten open heart surgery, and all I remember was how much pain she was in, and that she always had to carry a pillow around to every place with her to wear over her heart scar. When and when she wore a seatbelt, or even to cough. That was all I knew about surgery, and it was all I could think about. My grandmother passed away when I was 10, so you can imagine what thoughts were in my little developing mind. I hadn't even comprehended her death, let alone a surgery I had to have. We were going to Disney that year. It was all planned out, and my sister was taking us. It was all paid for. It was going to be my first time there, and I was supposed to be excited for this big trip. Turns out that my surgery was a bit before our trip. How great. A quick procedure, and then boom, Disney, here I come. All I knew beforehand was that the 5 of us, my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad, and me, were spending the night at a hotel in Hershey, Pennsylvania, so that I can wake up the next day and get an outpatient procedure done. I got my ablation done at the Hershey Medical Center. I vaguely remember waking up early in the hotel. It was still dark outside, and I had to take a shower. When I got out of the shower, I remember fighting my mom on this liquid stuff that she had to give me before we were even going to the hospital to make me sleepy. And the next item of events, I remember they're very gapped and spaced out. So I am sorry if it sounds confusing. I was a little drugged up. So I remember next that I had a gown on and there were IVs in me. They told me they were putting something in my IV to make me sleepier to go to sleep. Y'all, when I tell you I cried and cried out of sheer fear of not knowing what was going to happen to me, I was fighting the medicine, fighting it so much. They actually had to give me a little bit extra so they can really get me to sleep. Y'all, I fought it so hard. I even remember being wheeled down the hallway, past all the pretty colors and drawings on the walls. And the last thing I remember was going into the surgical room, looking up at those god-awful bright lights, and it was freezing cold. I woke up what felt like from a nap. I was confused. I was so confused. I tried climbing out of the bed and I started crying. My mom had to come to the bedside and try to calm me down. She said I did well. We were going home soon. And the next memory I have was getting ready to go home. I still wasn't quite sure what they did to me, so I was afraid to move. I didn't want to hurt myself, and all I thought, on top of being confused and scared, was my mom said, "Come on, get up, let's get dressed." So I cried and I carried on because I was thinking the worst. When she finally got me up on my feet and took off the gown, that's when I saw the bandages that they had put on me. I had a major meltdown. Major meltdown. There was some gauze and tape on my upper chest, as well as each side of my groin. So I didn't know what went on under there. Again, I couldn't comprehend it. I was so little. I just thought they cut me up or something, you know? So when she finally got me up on my feet, I was scared to walk or even move because, again, I didn't know what went on. Were there stitches? Can I walk okay? Like, what the heck happened? After time had passed and, my carrying on just went on, my mom finally took it upon herself and ripped the bandages off from my groin with one fell swoop and says to me, "Look, you're fine. Now get dressed." As I have stated numerous times in this chapter, I was 12 years old. Not the best course of action a parent should take, but she was worried about her next fix. I'm sure of it. So I sucked it up, I got dressed, and I slowly walked into the hallway to see the rest of my family. Disney was only a short time away, and I was happy to have been done with all of this mess. At least that's what my little kid brain thought. We went back to the doctors for a checkup, and that's when the happiest thoughts became a dark moment. They told us that I still couldn't do anything that would excite my heart. It had some healing to do, and it meant little to no rides at Disney. What a time. A kid in an already horrible situation, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, just to watch it go out like that. Disney still came and went, and it was memorable nonetheless. Don't get me wrong. I got so many pictures with the princesses and my other favorite characters, Winnie the Pooh. I rode a couple of the baby rides, and we even ate at some of the character dinners, which was nice. Most importantly, at least from what I remember, I got to feel like a real family for a week. No drugs or drug runs. No worrying too much about my heart because I felt safe. I had my mom there, and she sat out with me through every ride I couldn't go on, but my siblings did. I felt that love back from her, and not just for a moment, but for 7 whole days. I loved that trip in spite of my heart problem. Because I got to feel what it was like to be a family, and that right there was what made it the happiest trip on earth. Not because of the slogan, but because of what we were experiencing together in those 7 days. I think the heart attack was bound to happen at some point. I was a kid who had a very hard upbringing, and I cared a lot about my parents' well-being, so much that it took precedent over everything. And eventually, I do believe it is what triggered my electrical system to spark, and for my heart attack to have happened.